What's going on, guys? Romer the Romer here. Today I have Matt Loberstein. He's sold over 7 figures in 1 year on Privet Label. This kid's a hustler. He's been documenting his journey for the last 4 years now. I've seen him. He's got clips with Ty Lopez, Gary Vaynerchuk. If you guys know Greg Mercer, like this kid's networking like crazy. And he obviously knows what he's talking about, and he obviously really cares about his audience. He gives away so much value, and he just consistently, relentlessly posts. And that's what I really respect about you. So welcome, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, man, for having me on. And that intro definitely makes me sound pretty cool. So hopefully the rest can live up to that.
Dude, you are cool.
So I appreciate it.
My audience is mainly resellers. So I want to start this. I know you used to flip watches. So I want to start by asking you about your watch flipping game. Was this like, did you always have Privet Label in mind? Was that always the end goal? And flipping watches was just a means to get there and raise the capital for that?
I definitely didn't have it in mind at all. And I love that you have the reseller community, because I still feel like I'm a part of that, because that's exactly where I got started. I was flipping phones first off. That was like my original first like real hustle, was running around on Craigslist, buying used iPhones, selling them on eBay. I got into watches. Well, I was always into watches. That's what kind of led me into flipping them. Vintage watches, collectible watches, like a lot of Omegas, if people are familiar. 1950s and 60s watches that I was into and knew and understood, and I could actually find those on eBay, like misrepresented, really crappy pictures, like those pictures when somebody's like 100 years old and they take a picture of this watch like upside down in a drawer or something, and then I'd be like, I know what that is. Let me take a risk on this and then flip it to the enthusiasts.
How did you gain that specific knowledge for flipping watches? Was it, you just were always so interested in it, or?
Yeah, I think it would be hard to like learn. It would be hard to go into something like that with the intent of being a reseller. For me, it was like I was just such a nerd about this, and I knew a lot about it, and I was kind of like digging into it a lot, anyways. And I do have a friend that knows even a ton about vintage watches that was helping me with like really specifics. Like I would show him something and be like, "Hey, does this look legit? Is something wrong with this?" So he was definitely kind of guiding me at that stage. But yeah, I mean, it could be hard to learn at least the types that I was flipping, but there's always a market for buy low, sell high, people that are desperate to sell things or whatever. But yeah, there would for sure be a learning curve to like know the things that I was looking for.
Gotcha. I've heard that technique of like looking for crappy listings on eBay. My concern with that is people just not shipping the item, because if they have a really crappy listing, like who knows if they're even like a good eBay seller, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was never really a huge concern. I just figured, I would have PayPal protection or credit card protection if I actually didn't receive something. So I was always pretty willing to take those types of risks. Sometimes I would buy them from really random countries and stuff too. And for the most part, had a good experience. But yeah, I mean, that was something that I don't really do it anymore. I stopped a while back, but it was a great side hustle. I'd make probably a couple $1,000 a month. Never was anything like gigantic, but it was definitely like a staple for me when I was kind of in college. That was the main years that I was flipping watches.
Gotcha. So for a hustle like that, like your average sales price, what do you think it was?
Yeah, most of the pieces I was selling were about $600 to $800 on average, and I was probably buying them for, as low as $250 to like $400, $450, $500.
You really only have to sell a couple a week to hit those numbers, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was low volume. I mean, it was like this was not it was kind of like a one-on-one transaction thing. I'd be listing these watches on forums, and people send you questions about it, and they want to see other things. Like it was very like a one-on-one, not a scalable thing at all. Like very different from Privet Label and the stuff we'll probably talk about in a few minutes. Like this was, one-on-one sales, like telling people what they wanted to know about this watch, if they wanted a picture of it on my wrist or something before they wanted to buy it, things like that. But yeah, it was, a handful per month.
Do you think with things like that, I mean, it might be different with the cards, but Gary Vee is talking a lot about cards lately. And my roommate actually he shot like 10 videos with this kid about selling cards on different platforms. I think mainly eBay, but with hustles like that, he's charging like $2,000 for a course, and I think it's a pretty simple course. With hustles like that, they can get oversaturated very quickly, right? If just a couple people enter the market that know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vintage watch market is pretty big. You know, there's a lot because like there's flippers and hustlers, but then there's dealers. You know, there's vintage watch dealers that have legitimate operations with, you know, tons. So I think it's a pretty big market, and you like from flipper to dealer, which is something I thought about a lot back then. But yeah, I mean, if it's super niche, I'm not too familiar with like the baseball card thing. Like I know Gary Vee has talked about it, but like I don't know that market. But I would imagine it can sustain more players than you might initially think. But yeah, I mean, I even experienced that. Like when I would flip these watches on Reddit a lot. Actually, there's like this one subreddit that it was called Watch Exchange. It still is. I actually sold a personal watch on there recently. But it's like on a small community like that, as soon as one other seller started selling like the types of pieces that I was dealing with, then it's like, yeah, there's kind of immediate competition. Like I think what you're kind of getting at is like, for a course about something so specific, it does that. I think it would be kind of weird to like offer like a vintage watch reselling course or something. Cause as soon as you get like 10 people taking it seriously, if you're telling them to buy this type of watch, sell it in this type of place, then yeah, it would get saturated very quickly. But there's of course different niches within it.
Gotcha. So before we move on to Privet Label, what 3 tips would you have for someone starting flipping watches?
3 tips.
Let's ruin the market right now.
Yeah. Well, I think the first tip would be like, you really need to know your shit. Like you have to know what you're looking at, because you can get screwed very easily. Like, especially in the vintage game, might not be fakes, but there's like redials, like when a dial is refinished and reprinted to kind of make it look new again. And the vintage market always wants, authenticity, like originality. So you have to have the eye for like knowing if something was replaced, if something was redone, or you can get stuck with like a watch that's just like a Franken watch, like pieced together that wasn't really in its original form. So that would be a good one. I would say another tip would be, I would say for the most part, stick to men's watches. That comes to mind because especially in the vintage game, there's this nerd culture of vintage watches that is mostly male. Like I've flipped some women's watches, but there's definitely like the market is like 1% the size of like the male vintage watch nerds. And a third tip would be maybe like don't do anything too obscure. You know, there's so many watches out there, and like the ones that sell the best, you know, Omegas, Rolexes, you know, those are kind of the brands that your typical consumer is looking for, more than like these really obscure, like out there types of brands.
Gotcha. Cool. Let's move into Privet Label.
Yeah.
So this is a question I see you harp on this one a lot. Will Privet Label ever become oversaturated?
I think traditional private label is oversaturated. I think that the way I see it is like, you have to have a unique brand. You have to come at this with a product that you position really well. You have to know who your target buyer is. You have to think about how you can turn this product into a brand, into an experience, into a whole product line of other things you can sell, and you can potentially sell the same customer more products, things like that. But yeah, you know, I think kind of the old school private label model is. Can
you kind of explain that to my audience, because they have no idea what the old school model is? And then I know your approach is building a brand, which I really like.
Yeah. So it's like, it's weird for me to even say it sometimes too, because there's like these terms that people throw around, but then there's like the way that I think about it, which doesn't always like align perfectly with those terms. But people use like the term private label for, you know, talking to a manufacturer, getting a off the shelf product with your brand name on it. That's private label. So when I kind of say like private label and kind of talk about it in like a not so great way, I'm thinking of it as like the very thrown together, rushed, like cheap approach. Like you just find like a generic product, you slap like a really stupid brand name that you thought up in 3 seconds. You have somebody on Fiverr make like the worst logo anybody's ever seen, and you think that you can just like, you know, use one of these Amazon giveaway services and get on page 1 within a day and all of that. Like that's kind of like the old school private label model, which worked amazingly 5 years ago, by the way. Like that was all you needed to do to build like $1 million business. But that's the model that like, that's kind of why I almost like shy away from the private label label, because I think what really works is doing private label, but with elements of a real brand, really trying to think about this as starting a product company. Like you're going to a manufacturer, you're thinking, how can I make this product a little better? How can I position this different to my customers? How can I, first of all, who is the target customer? It's not just like some completely generic type of thing, and making a whole cohesive experience of a brand and a product that is actually a better offer than the other private label, the sea of other private label competitors. How do you make something that's actually standing out and compels people to make the purchase?
Yeah. It's a lot more work than just slapping a brand on a product and throwing it on there.
It is, but I think that it's also arguably less risky because, the more, like when I see people that have like very, very, very limited budgets or want to do it extremely quickly or easily, then you're playing with all the hordes of people that think that that's all you have to do. And then you're having 1,000 other competitors that are basically selling the same product with the same strategies on all of that. But when you kind of come in with the more difficult, slow down, think about making a product company that happens to utilize Amazon, then the Amazon private label opportunity really opens up, because now you look like the real deal in a sea of all these just like very basic private label competitors.
Is this like in the private label community, I guess, all the YouTubers and like, I know Greg Mercer, obviously he's got a lot in the game because he has Jungle Scout. Is this mentality of creating a brand, is this like generally accepted now? Is that like the norm? Like you have to create a brand, or there's still the people that are like, no, you can do it at mass and just make a bunch of different products and ship them in without really creating a real brand for any of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's pretty accepted at this point. Like I'm sure even Greg would talk about brands to some extent. I'm sure. I haven't been like following his content too closely on the more recent stuff, but I also I should clarify, like it's not like launching your first product won't work. Because even a brand is going to be started with one product launch on Amazon. It might look like a private label product, but for me, the difference is going from one product to one product to one product to one product and just kind of starting over from scratch every time, or building up that brand equity, building up this leverage that you have over the seller that's just coming out the gate competing with your product, when you're now like leveraging an audience that you have, or cross promoting your listings because maybe one of your listings now sells super well, has 100 reviews, and now you're cross promoting to your new listing. Gotcha. Like those are the types of things that you never achieve when you're just going from like random product to random product to random product. So it's not that I think, if somebody launches a random product and succeeds, like it's not that I think that's impossible, and I'd be pumped for them. Like that's great. But I also think like then maybe that is the seed for the brand.
Gotcha. So can you still easily private label in 2020?
You can do it for sure. I don't know if I would definitely hesitate to call it easy. I would say in terms of a lot of business models out there, the barriers to entry are still reasonably low. It's not as low as something like flipping and reselling, but it's a different risk reward profile, because flipping is generally, at least the way I did it, not too scalable, but it's also no real risk because you're buying something with this inherent value in it. Whereas private label, you're going to put in, let's say $5,000 into giving this a real try. But, that's still a lot more straightforward than an old school business where you're like signing a lease and hiring employees and whatever. It's still relatively low barrier to entry. But I would say I would never want to call it easy, even though like the steps are not difficult, but some people it's not a guaranteed success like something like flipping. Like there will be people that give it a shot and it is not profitable. Like there are things you can do to mitigate, losses and things like that, but it's just not like a guaranteed thing, like buying a watch that is worth 1,000 and only paying 500. This is like you're taking a bigger risk, but then if it works, this is a product that you're selling consistently every day for 3 years from now.
Did you have anyone that really helped you accelerate your learning curve?
So I was lucky to have a small group of kind of just like internet friends that were on the same path, which was in retrospect super helpful. And this was like,
were those people you actually knew in real life?
They were actually people, no, for the most part, no, a couple of them. Yeah. But it was mostly people that I had just got in touch with through flipping, actually. And people that were like also kind of going from kind of realizing eBay was like getting tough and seeing this Amazon thing and being like, clearly all you have to do is get reviews and get on the top and you're going to make like tons of money. Like it just seemed so obvious. So a lot of people were starting to shift their eyes from eBay to Amazon. And yeah, I was just lucky to like know a couple people that were taking that seriously. But you know, this was, there wasn't, at least to my knowledge, there wasn't a single podcast, YouTube channel, Facebook group, anything about like FBA private label at the time. So I definitely think having those few people like was a huge help.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the way I've scaled my book flipping business is I've gotten books to come to me. So like from thrift stores, libraries, like they pack them up and ship them to us. And I have stay-at-home moms at work for me. And you know, I think a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I was like sliding your DMs. I was like, yo, dude, in a month, I'm going to buy your course. In a month, I'm going to buy your course. But what I've learned is whenever you go down any path in life, you just keep getting better at it and keep getting better at it. And then like to take on a new venture, you would just have to drop everything and just learn so much. I was like, all right, I've gotten like, if I look 2 months behind me, I've gotten way better these 2 months right now. And like the next 2 months, I'm going to make way more money. So I just kept doing it. And now I'm at the point where I have like 7 moms that pack items for me, which is a lot because it's a lot to manage. And I'm envious of private labelers because besides virtual assistants, you have Amazon packing everything for you. They're fulfilling all your orders. When it comes to the supplier side, you have people packing your orders there too. They're wholesaling it to America, or I'm assuming your suppliers are overseas. You don't have any real employees, right? You're still technically a one-man army besides the virtual assistants.
Yeah, other than virtual assistants, it's just me, and
you're just leveraging these like massive fulfillment centers, and that's amazing.
Yeah, so much of it can be done with either software that replaces people, or obviously FBA itself, which is just packing everything and using a freight forwarder to pick it up from your supplier. Like for example, like you can have a full container go from a manufacturer in China, end up in Amazon warehouses, and end up in your customers' doors just by like sending an email to a freight forwarder, basically. Like you don't really have to touch anything.
It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like those things cost money too, and like it changes margin and things like that. But it is a business that you can set up to be like not hands off in the sense that like, oh, passive income and stuff like that necessarily. Like I would never really call it like fully passive or something like that. But in terms of physical hands on, it's for sure something that you can run at whatever hours you want to be running, and shooting off an email from your phone, whatever. Like you can, there's like small leverage points that have big outcomes with FBA. Like,
right.
You make that decision to do the product. Like the decision is the lead domino that just leads to all these other things happening that are just really like micro decisions. Like how should I make my listing? Which of these suppliers am I going to go with? Things like that. But like the decision to actually start the product is something that can have an effect on your life for years just from the one product, which is crazy. Yeah.
Do you think if people fail on private label, do you still think it's a good experience?
I do.
Wise?
Yeah, I see. I know what you mean, and I would agree with that. For me, I would say every business that I do, and I'm not like, I don't think Amazon and FBA and private label is like the end all be all either. I just see it as like a stepping stone and like a way to get to the next thing, or to do more of what I want, or to leverage it into a different business. And every business that I do, really every product even, or every project I do, you come in a little stronger than the previous one, just because you've kind of learned how to put these different pieces together, right? Like you understand a little bit more about design, and you understand a little bit more about like shipping, and like every like new project, you can just kind of like come in a little bit more ready to just knock it out of the park. So yeah, I mean, and also especially, I think it's especially true with private label, because I talk to a lot of people that, their first product is not a success. Maybe they even lose thousands of dollars, and their second is a success, or the third. And it's not always the first one. And I think that it's almost great to like get one out of the way so that you can really know, so you can just get a feel for it. And like for me, I didn't even like realize I was doing this at the time. Like it wasn't a plan, but I actually kind of did this unintentionally, because I was selling at the time on eBay random phone accessories, because I was flipping actual phones too. And I was selling like lightning cables and, you know, phone parts and tempered glass screen protectors when those were like the newest thing that ever existed. And I was selling them on eBay generic. And I was learning about this Amazon thing. And I was like, well, let me just like make a brand for this and throw it on Amazon. And so I did that. And even though it didn't really succeed on Amazon, it taught me how to do all the barcodes and the shipping and how to deal with FBA and everything. And then I went into my first like real launch way stronger because of that.
Gotcha. So at the time you were still like labeling yourself?
Yeah. So it wasn't always hands off. Yeah, that's something I should clarify is like, even on the first real launch, what I would consider like not the screen protector stuff, I was just doing it scrappy. I was just having the products show up to my studio apartment, slapping on labels myself. The boxes were generic and I just had stickers done to make them branded. I mean, I started scrappy. This was a while back. This is not the way I do things now. And then I went from there to actually having like a small warehouse office where I would do that like at a decently larger scale. And then that just turned into such a headache that I was like, wait a second, like, why am I not just doing this the hands-off way that you described a couple minutes ago? Like, clearly this can be done. Like, it's like I started it on a really small level in like a messy way, which got me going. And then it got out of hand. And then I was like, wait, like, let me like blow this up a little bit and figure it out the right way.
Did you ever consider wholesale?
Like for existing products, like,
yeah.
Okay.
Like,
so, because I also think about wholesaling our products like the other way, but
like wholesaling on Amazon.
Yeah. I thought about it, and I see, like, I know Larry, Watch Me Amazon. Like I know people crush it with it. I have no doubts about that. It just never really like appealed to me.
Larry's coming on next week, by the way, guys. So,
sweet. Yeah, he's great. That guy slays. But yeah, maybe something we'll even get into if we meander off topic enough is just like kind of like businesses that they're not just about money, but there has to be like another element of like fulfillment in it. And like for me, I see wholesale as very just like numbers and arbitrage. Like there's not much like real value like created in a creative way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Do I think it could be a gigantic business? I mean, 100%. It just never seemed to
it seems
catch
like
my attention.
Amazon does like the wholesalers. They give them preference. I know a couple, because do you have an Amazon rep? Like if you picked up, could you talk to an Amazon rep on the phone right now if you wanted to?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I don't have one.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, like a direct,
like, would it be like a virtual assistant or?
No, sorry, I misunderstood what you meant. Like I know of people that do have, like they pay to have that, but no, I don't pay for that.
I know two wholesalers that have that, and I'm just assuming it's because they're wholesale. But the value they bring to Amazon is like they're basically doing the dirty work of talking to the distributor and getting the distributor the products to sell on Amazon. So they're basically working for Amazon in that way, especially once you start getting like to an international level, down in like South America. Like these wholesalers, they bring so much value to the table because they already have all these relationships that Amazon doesn't have to make themselves. So I think that's the value they bring. Because I think about that value question all the time because I'm a reseller. So I take books and resell them. I'm like, okay, like anybody can do this. There's not a huge barrier to entry. I don't have any brand on Amazon. Amazon owns my brand. Like I don't have a customer list from all the thousands of books I've sold. Amazon owns all that information. So, and it's concerning. That's why a lot of, I think out of everybody, this is just my opinion. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it seems like the resellers have the most, they post the most on Instagram. The resellers do. And maybe it's because of the low barrier to entry, but I think it's also realizing you have no brand on Amazon and people want to create a brand for themselves. Privet Label has a brand. Wholesale arguably has a brand with the distributors. I would argue that because you can bring a portfolio to a deal and say, hey, look, I work with these 8 other guys, and that's going to increase your deal. Like not the brand on Amazon, but the brand to the distributors. And what's the other one? So there's private label, wholesale, drop shipping. Drop shipping guys post a decent amount, but it's easier to document the hustle like Gary Vee style reselling. But I have noticed.
Oh yeah.
Have you noticed that there's a plethora of just resellers out there like flipping anything, but they're the ones that document their journey.
Yeah, no, I think it's like the Gary Vee effect. And I think it's just like the perfect business to document. Like it's interesting. And you can show what you're buying all the time, and you can show like the sales and stuff like that, and where you're going and all the stuff. Like there's just a lot to show. But yeah, like, I mean, private label, most of it is just like me, like typing on my laptop or something. Like it's not the Gary Vee hustle type of look.
Right.
And even wholesale, at least at like Watch Me Amazon scale, for example, like there's a lot, because he's basically just, it's basically like the reseller thing at like legit scale. And also, like, I agree with you, like there is value created for sure. Like I see that, you know, it's not like they're useless. Like they're creating valuable connections for sure. But like, I just think what appeals to me, what I think is like the most interesting area of entrepreneurship is creating something out of nothing. And I think that something like creating your own brand, your own product, and like owning that just has a feel to it that appeals to me.
I think that's people begin to like document. They like documenting their journey more than the actual journey, because they're like, holy shit, like this is mine. Whether it's Matt Loberstein or Romer the Romer, like whatever brand you create, that's your baby. It's something that you've made. And once it really starts to work and people reach out to you and they're like, hey, you helped me, that's addictive right there. And I'm sure you've experienced that with your products too, like your private label products. You don't have to say what they are, but whatever they are, I'm sure you've had customers reach out and say, hey, look, this product's amazing. It's changed my life. Or maybe it didn't change their life, but maybe it's like a bidet or something and it's fucking awesome. Like whatever it is, you know, you get that high from like, this is mine. I created this. This is my masterpiece. This is my piece of art. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. You definitely do get that with private label. It depends on the product a lot. You know, I definitely have products that you never hear that for, but then there are some that just have that shareable nature, that like exciting factor to it. But yeah, no, there's still, it's a different level of like satisfaction when somebody says like, oh, I watched your videos and then I did this and this and this, and now I like quit my job and I bought a house or something. Like when I hear that, it's like, okay, that's a little bit different than like, oh, like you know, that toothbrush like really like helped me.
And plus it's you, so like your ego's involved with it, so you're like, oh yeah, that was me, I did that.
Yeah, personal brand is like, I mean, the way I see it, reason I ever started YouTube or anything in the first place was like, this is the project that never ends, really. Like all of these businesses that I'm doing have a lifespan, the way I see it. But you know, maybe I'm still putting my thoughts out in some form for the rest of my life, right? So I feel like that's kind of what the personal brand is really the seed for, is to be able to just, you know, be the spark for something that I want to bring attention to someday, or, you know, have something be created. I feel like there's so much long-term potential in that.
Okay, I got to go down to this next question now, because now you got me thinking about social media. And I want to be able to take this piece of content and share it. For those of you that are watching and wondering why I'm throwing all these questions on the screen, number one, I'm throwing them on the screen so you can see them. Number two, I'm going to repurpose this on Instagram and even YouTube. But
Smart.
So I've noticed that you post, where is the question? You post on Instagram way different than you post on YouTube. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I noticed you post a very different type of content on Instagram than YouTube. You barely talk about private label on Instagram. Is it respect for the different platforms, or is it just that Instagram's not the place to talk about how-to content, like breaking down how to establish a relationship with a supplier? What's going on there?
That's I've never been asked that. I really like that. And the honest truth to that is I just don't think of my Instagram as a business channel. Like I basically think of it as a personal Instagram. I think that there is potential on that platform, but I just kind of enjoy keeping it a little more authentic, a little bit just more me and whatever I'm interested in or talking about. Like I'm not really trying to use it as like lead generation, or like it's just not my angle. Would those things work? Yeah, I've had so many people tell me like you should be posting like you know, the Gary Vee clips, like the text and all that, and I tried that like a long time ago, but I kind of just prefer Instagram to be one of the platforms where if people want to go deep with me, like if people want to see like what I'm really up to, like what I'm really thinking about, not just like how to do this or whatever, then I think Instagram is one of those places. The same way I have like separate email lists, for example. I have
like that a lot.
I have an email list for just like, a new Amazon video or like some piece of Amazon news or, something about my course or whatever. But then I have another email list that's just like me. And it's just like things that are intriguing me, thoughts that I'm having. And like, that's just one of those places for people to kind of like get to know me on a deeper level, like the 1,000 true fans thing. And I guess I just put Instagram more into that bucket than like a platform that I need to like squeeze all the juice out of. It's just like, let me just like, post something that I thought was funny or
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah. I seen you on TikTok too.
Yeah. having fun with that a little bit. TikTok's interesting, dude. I mean, you can amass views there like no other platform for sure. But I'm still interested to see like, will people turn that into, monetization and actual stuff? Like I think at the highest levels, but I don't know. It seems harder to do that on TikTok.
Yeah, right now. I think in the future TikTok could be good. I think it's kind of like what Gary Vee's saying. Like right now it's not the place, but it's like you have to get your foot in the door. So when it grows, you're already there. And then he's thinking that TikTok is going to change into like an Instagram, and I can definitely see that. And you can sneak CTAs in at the end of your videos. That's what I do, at least on Instagram. Like I'll make an Instagram video and I'll add at the very end. It's like if you watch this far, go check out the link in my bio. It's my email list, whatever. And you can do that on TikTok as well. But it's like I post something on TikTok and I have like 40 followers and I'll get like 15,000 views. I'm like, who's watching this? Like who is this? Who are these people? Are they people that would even like buy a course from me or even more importantly, like even consume my content in a meaningful way? Like, or are they just like, did I use a hashtag correctly? And maybe I had a funny thumbnail on like my face was made a certain way and they're just clicking on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's hard to actually like convert that audience. Like for me on TikTok, like I definitely have not even mentioned Amazon once. Like I'm just screwing around, like posting a funny video of my cat or something. Like I'm just messing around, like kind of getting familiar with the platform. Not like, again, kind of like I said with Instagram, it's not like, oh, how do I use this? I'm just kind of like messing around and having fun. But I totally think those things would work, call to action, things like that. But I think what's unique about TikTok versus like Instagram is I feel like on TikTok, you can have a video get so viral, like say like how yours got 15K views, like that even on a higher scale, like, cause they just push it to the For You page and you get tons and tons of views and tons of followers potentially. But these people, like, they don't even know your name. Like these people don't even know who you are necessarily, unless like the clip, like if you were doing like an instructional piece of content and that was what got pushed and you said those things, then great. But at least in my experience so far, like I have like one clip of just some like car stuff that has like 300,000 something views. And like, that leads to me having like 800 something followers on TikTok or whatever. But these people don't know who Matt Loberstein even is. Yeah. They don't know anything about me.
I don't use TikTok enough to know like if the people you follow continually come up on your feed. So like if you follow like 100 people, or let's say you follow 1,000 people, are you still going to see like, is that like, is Instagram all you see is the people you follow? Unless you're on the Discover page all the time. But it seems like TikTok just throws it in your face. Like you open the app and it's like some girl shaking her ass. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah, dude. Well, so the way I understand it is the For You page is always going to have viral content that's being pushed. And you're always going to see content that you don't follow. But you're also going to see, if you're following it, you're going to see some of that on your For You page, but you're also going to see it on like the following tab. So you can go to the following tab and then it's like Instagram, then you're only seeing who you're following, or the For You page is going to be all the stuff that's getting pushed. And I think it's going to still show, like I'll still get stuff on my For You page from like a small account that I follow, even if the video is not big. But yeah, I mostly just do the For You page. I don't even really like follow people very much.
Gotcha. So both YouTube and Privet Label require building a brand for long-term success. So that's key. If you want long-term success, you have to develop a brand on either of those platforms. You can't just have a video that goes viral and expect all those subscribers to stick around. And with Privet Label, you might make a product, but it might just be like you hit the right niche at the time. But if you don't have the brand, it's not going to last. You can't create adjacent brands or adjacent products to that brand. Which pursuit has taught you more about branding in marketing?
That's also a very good question. I would almost spin this a little and say that I think I've learned more about branding from Privet Label, and I think I've learned more about marketing from YouTube and the course, because I've had to learn to market in so many new ways. Whereas, up until starting YouTube, like 100% of my business was Amazon. And before that, it was just eBay, where there was no advertising whatsoever, really. It was just, posting stuff. But YouTube has taught me to do like all these different types of marketing and copywriting. Well, I mean, some of that in Privet Label for sure, but I've definitely had to like learn my skills way more in that, like, thumbnails, titles, calls to action, just making everything flow and having like funnels and just everything in a more complex way than Privet Label is. But I think Privet Label is more of a branding thing, because on YouTube, I don't think that much about branding, to be honest, because I just think my brand is whatever comes out of Matt's mouth. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, Matt Loberstein, like, wears this and speaks like that. Like, I think that would be really hard to keep up, like, over the long term. So
yeah,
optimally, and like, I don't even want, like, maybe I would have sold more courses if I had like really positioned myself as the Privet Label guy, like, forever. But I really prefer to be able to talk about different topics if I want to, and kind of just play the long game of being me as far as the personal brand.
Yeah. That's the only way you can play the long game.
For sure. You can't keep up like just trying to like be a persona as a personal brand. It just doesn't work. But I mean, I still do think about positioning and branding on YouTube. For example, like, I care a lot about, just how the visuals look and audio and things like that, and how the editing is done, and kind of which is branding, right? It's like, how is it perceived, right? Like, just how is it taken in when you stumble upon it? So I do think about that, but maybe not to like that deep of an extent.
Yeah. It's hard measuring like the effectiveness. I don't know if that's the right word, but maybe the quality of your content, because sometimes content will get pushed and you're like, holy shit, I didn't expect that. And other times you're like, I put a lot of effort into this and there's virtually like no views. I saw you, I think it was one of the emails you sent out. You were talking about how when you make a piece of content, you look at it and you're like, okay, and I might be putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're like, I made a piece of content and I'm proud of that. And then you post it, and regardless of what happens, like, you've already maybe not made your decision, but like, you know what that piece of content's worth. You said something along those lines. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what I said for that, but yeah, I definitely, I feel that way for sure. Like, if you are making your content just to please the audience, it's really, really difficult. And I've fallen into this trap all the time. My channel, like, I'm very thankful for the level that it's at, but it's not like it's been just this continual upswing. I had a big boost of subscribers like almost 3 years ago when I started out the channel. But then for the past 18 months, it's been just, really like 2 years. It's just been a slow trickle, like one by one, Yeah. So I don't have that cracked. And I fall into this trap all the time. Like, a lot of my favorite videos are my less viewed videos. And a lot of what I think of as my crappiest videos are my quote best.
I guess that's my question. What do you define as like crap versus like quality? Like, for you?
Okay. So it definitely does not have to do with the performance, because I think you could basically find an inverse correlation on my channel between what I think is quality and what has the highest views. I mean,
they said you should talk to a 5th grader on YouTube and make videos.
Yeah, that's probably true. Whereas my favorite videos are the ones that I feel like are more creative. Like, I've made some videos just about like habits and time management and kind of like the broader self-improvement stuff, and how to like structure your day, and like kind of these more creative videos that I made a little more cinematic and a little like almost documentary style. Like, those to me, I think, like, if I could have one of those videos go semi-viral and bring in like a new wave to my channel, this is what I've been saying for 2 years, by the way, like, I would be like the happiest person ever if that would happen. But it's hard to get YouTube to do that. It's hard to like get that thing to get pushed. And the only videos I've had get pushed over the years are really, my one was like 3 years ago, is Amazon FBA dead, just very like fifth grader ish, right? And by the way, like very low quality compared to the videos that I make now, in my opinion. Maybe that's like the wrong perspective, but I used to just hold the camera in my hand. It was very shaky. I was just like, it was very rough. Whereas like now I try to have like a really structured, nice video. But yeah, like it's tough to put content out there, but I think you just have to like put it out there and be proud of it the way that you said. And hopefully something hits, because if not, it really is discouraging. And like, it's one thing that like, if I had never had a video hit and like, would I still be doing this 3 years down the road? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, if I had never had any, like if I still had like 3 subscribers,
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a tough question. And I ask myself this question all the time. So I'm sure you've thought about this question as well. You said you'd be happier if the videos you made about time management and different productivity hacks and all that type of content went viral. Mm-hmm. Why would that make you happier?
It would make me happier than the Amazon content, because I just see Amazon as like a very small piece of my overall life and like what I'm really about. Amazon is just something that I've been able to leverage and make some money. And mm-hmm. that and making money is more interesting than Amazon. But making money is only interesting because it allows you to, shape your life the way that you want to, right? So for me, like the more you kind of work your way up that chain, that's just what I find more interesting. Like I'm much more interested in kind of these philosophical type of topics than talking about like how to launch an Amazon. Like just me personally, like I'm just a little over it. I'm just a little done with talking about those. And I make those videos because I feel like I should just keep that up, because that's kind of what my channel is built on. But I would love to just be able to, and not that I am not allowed to or something. It's just that mm-hmm. like it would seem like such a divergence, but I just think it would be more true and authentic to who I am, to just be able to talk about broader topics that I'm interested in. It's just more exciting to me.
What do you think it would take to make that type of content like really do well for you?
Like perform well in terms of actually getting pushed and stuff. Yeah. If I knew, I'd be there.
I think this is my opinion. If I can interrupt real quick, I think a big thing when it comes to like, because so many people are making content like about like philosophy on life and what people should believe and hard work, and you're like, who the hell is this guy? And like, you don't want to listen to him. My theory is like, if like, and you've been doing this, you have like a video with Ty Lopez, you have a video with Gary Vee. Like, I just think it's like people are kind of like monkeys. And when you see the king monkey doing something good, you're like, oh, he's doing something good. And then when he's offering advice on life, you're willing to sit down and listen to him. But if you don't know who someone is, like, you're like, why would I listen to so-and-so about time management? But for like Tim Ferriss, everybody's talking about how great Tim Ferriss is. So it doesn't matter. Like Tim Ferriss will be like 3 hacks for in the morning. I'm like, oh, I got to figure this out because I trust him. But if like you came up on my feed, I didn't know who you were. Like I trust you now because I've watched your content. But if I didn't know who you were, I'd be like, who is this guy like telling me 3 hacks in the morning? Because you're competing with the greats. You're competing with Tony Robbins. You're competing with these people who are like way up there. That's just my opinion. No,
that's a great point. And I think that's definitely the biggest shortcut, is to already have like this massive success and like, Tim Ferriss, obviously like I'm nowhere near Tim Ferriss level. Right. But I've seen channels that still pop doing this type of stuff for sure. Like, I mean, look at like giant channel now, Matt Diavella, for example. Are you familiar? Mm-mm. So he makes incredible videos about, self-improvement, and he started at relatively nothing. And now he has like, I don't know, 2 million subscribers or something. His videos are phenomenal, by the way. Like mine are not at that level, and that's probably part of it.
Well, okay. What do you think? What do you think makes his video so good? Is it like he's super articulate? He's laying out the points. He's entertaining.
He's a real filmmaker. So he made the Netflix documentary Minimalism. So he like has that skill set. So he still, again, he had something before for sure.
Have to watch that.
I've just seen like a bunch of channels around him like pop up, and it's just the algorithm. It's like this black box algorithm thing. And like some channels just get picked up, even though they were kind of at nowhere. So I just keep throwing things out there like, oh, maybe this will get picked up. Maybe this will get picked up. But I feel like once your channel is kind of in like this rut, it's like, it's way more difficult to like try to get out. Like the longer you're in the rut, does that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. My roommate was dealing with that, and he posted a video a while back it was like a 10-hour video of all of his content like together. And one did really well. One he got, and it's all about watch time getting paid on YouTube. And he's like, oh, I'm going to do this again. He did it again. And he thinks he was like blacklisted or something, or essentially like the algorithm was like, screw you. And I think he's right. I think something happened where that 10-hour video where a bunch of people didn't watch it, it really screwed his channel up. So now he's recovering. But I was looking at his analytics the other day, and like compared to mine, I'm like, dude, you're still doing like great. So I think we have to, as content creators, like we have to be happy for like 2 people. We have to be like, we got 7 people in here right now. Like I got to be happy for like to realistically think of 7 people in a room, like just listening to you talk. That's pretty crazy. Even like one person, it's like one person that really gives a damn about you. That's enough for me. But it's easy to get in like the comparison mindset of like, oh, Matt's doing this and I'm only doing this. I should be there because when he was 26, you know what I mean? Like it's so easy to really piss yourself off and make yourself upset.
Yeah. No, that's a great reminder for me too, because I remember like when I had, 500 subscribers or something, and like that was an insane, unbelievably high number. And I remember going to, Amazon meetups and, people coming right up to me and being like, oh my God, like you helped me so much and your videos are so helpful, or getting emails like I did this and this and this. And it's like, you realize like, whoa, like you really don't need a lot of people to make an impact. I think I just got the itch for like the YouTuber thing. Like for example, there are people that, I mean, I'm sure you know this, like they're like Graham Stephan makes like $100,000 a month on YouTube ads. Like that's insane. Yeah. And I think like it would just be cool to like have that sort of, not because of like the fame or because of like the numbers, but to kind of have the, what's the word? Like, I don't know, to kind of just have the proof that what you're doing on YouTube is like appreciated to a sense that you could then put more effort into it. Like, for example, if I was making $20,000 a month on YouTube ads, which I'm not making a fraction of that, by the way, I would be like, holy shit, I need to like take this way more seriously and make way more. Like I would shift a lot of resources from other businesses and other projects. I'm doing all these different things. Like Amazon is just one thing I'm doing. YouTube is just one thing I'm doing. Course is just one thing I'm doing. Like I have a handful. Gotcha. But I think if YouTube were to get on this like massive upward trajectory, I'd be like, no, like this is the one, like this is the project that's for me, right? Like kind of back to the personal brand and the long term. That's the project that I really want to take off. So if I could get it to take off and like have, financial things coming out of that and all of that, then it would be like the gratification of, oh, I can put resources into this and this can be like the thing, not just like a small side project. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do you listen to any Jim Rohn?
No, I'm aware of him, but I don't.
Okay. One of the things he says, and a lot of people say this, but I listened to this way back in the day, or he was way back in the day. I was listening to it on YouTube, but he talked about the more money you make is dependent on how much value you bring to the marketplace. And when you think about that with content, you're like, how much money is my content making? And I think it's true. We intuitively know that if your YouTube videos are making you $20,000 a month in ad spend, that's crazy. Like that means your content is valuable to the masses. Does it mean it's good content? Who knows? Because the masses are the masses. But it does mean it's valuable to the marketplace, which does say something, especially if it is content like you're helping people with productivity, because that's content that, it comes from your heart, comes from your experience. And if that type of content's valued, you really feel like you're doing something versus Privet Label. You're teaching people how to make money. That's great. But I can imagine like some of these channels, they really get stuck in a rut with the content they create, because it's like, how much farther are you going to go down that road of creating videos, prank videos? Like, okay, you created 3 that were great, but are you always going to be a prankster? Because that's not super scalable. Like, what are you going to do when you're 70 years old? Or what are you going to do when you just don't feel like it, No,
we're in a much better place than those channels. Those channels are like, that's just like a short-term, like media company sort of business angle. Like it's not even really a personal brand necessarily. I'm sure some of them have figured it out. But yeah, no, I like the way you put it. And it's like, it's not that it's about the fame. Like I wouldn't want, people stopping me on the street like every 3 minutes. Like, I mean,
have you been recognized in public?
A couple times, yeah. Like, so only like once or twice, like completely randomly, but it happens a lot, at events and stuff that are like relevant. But yeah, I mean, like, just like completely being stopped randomly. Like it happened once. I was like walking down my own street and somebody, and like, I was kind of like crossing the street and I like walked out and there's a car coming. So I like stopped and the car goes by and then he backs up and he's like, Matt. I was like, holy shit, no way. That was really weird. That was definitely the weirdest, but like, that was like basically like the one time that I can even recall, like completely like without context. Like when I go to, an Amazon event or like a business conference or something, like
it's a little different.
I feel like, well, like this is weird. But
I've been recognized a few times in public, and my brand's way smaller than yours. So it blew my mind. And going back to the point of like resellers wanting a brand because it's something real and tangible. I was doing a college buyback. So I was buying textbooks from students in Nashville. That's where I'm from. This is last year. I'm sitting there and I spent $200 on Facebook ads. My first time ever using Facebook ads, and 3 kids came. So I bought 3 textbooks and I paid them like 25% of market value. So I'm paying a decent amount for these books that I'm going to resell on Amazon and maybe make 100% ROI, which is good, but I'm not going to realize that for a couple of months. And plus I'm already $200 in the hole. Yeah. And I left that coffee shop and someone goes, Romer? And I'm like, are you serious? Because at the time I had like 3,000 Instagram followers and less than 1,000 YouTube subs. And I was just like, are you serious right now? And he's like, yeah, man, I watch all your content. I love it, blah, blah, blah. And like, I left there and I was like, wow, like there's really something to this content. Like it's so much, like nobody's ever going to recognize me for being, none of my customers on Amazon are ever going to recognize me for being the person that sold them books ever, no matter how big I get, because it's always going to be Amazon.com. And so that made me just think, I was just like, wow, not just like personal branding, but branding's powerful. And I made a shift even in my reselling business to create brands in my reselling business too. So that's something that's withstanding. But
how do you do that exactly?
You can be a service for thrift stores, for libraries. And ironically, since I posted so much on social media, I developed a following of resellers, and those people needed help selling books that they couldn't sell, but I could. I discovered that people couldn't sell a certain type of textbook and my account could. So I made a service called restrictedinventory.com. I'll plug this. And this is where I get a majority of my books now. So people on Instagram, the more I post on Instagram, the more books I get. Check it out real quick. Grind hard, well done, sir. And welcome to the freaking Well Show. So yeah, that's my service, restrictedinventory.com. Reezy
really
resells,
cool.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He copied my service. Reezy, if you're watching this, he's got Reezy.biz. So he does the same thing for resellers as well. So yeah.
Reezy's cool.
Yeah, he is. That's a way to create a brand. And then there's bulk books, which the way I like to frame bulk books to like people that don't know about selling books on Amazon is basically like wholesale, except you get a bunch of products and 95% of them suck and 5% of them are good. And you get them for like dirt cheap. So like you get a pallet of books, you have to scan through all of them, and then 5% of them are good to sell. It is a grind. It's a hustle. So what I recommend for my audience to do is pursue textbooks, build relationships with colleges, libraries, thrift stores, whoever you can get books from, and scale it that way. Get replenishable sources. So that's the path I've gone down.
That's awesome. And that's a great way of sourcing for you, and like having a different position than just being another person running around to thrift stores and things like that. So
exactly,
that is actually like not even really just reselling anymore. Like you've really found a different like missing value in like the chain of how this all works. And like, that's the business now. That's really cool. Just also popped in my head. I hadn't even like thought of this, but like, first thing I ever sold online, I think was a textbook.
Really?
I wasn't reselling really, but like, and I think in a way, like this is the type of thing that led me to reselling and being entrepreneurial. Was like you're probably thinking what it is like selling my own stuff. So when I was in college, I would like, everyone would be like renting books or, buying them brand new or whatever. I'm like, that is not a good deal. Like I would just buy them. I would buy like, the $300 textbook. I would like buy it used for like $129. And then at the end of the semester, I would like sell it for like the same thing or sometimes slightly less or slightly more. But yeah, I was doing that like way back. But yeah, I wonder if that was actually the first thing I like, maybe not, but like that type of stuff, I think is what inspired me.
Textbooks are worth a lot too. So when you sell that, you're like, holy shit, I just made this much selling something online. That's how I started. I took an organic chemistry class and I spilled something all over my book. But I did something where I printed off the front page and laminated it, and like I rebinded the whole thing, and I sold it for like $50 more than I bought it for, and that was like my first successful flip. And that's real. I think that book is really what I still think of, like the first dopamine spike I got from selling books, and that's the first one I think that really set me off. Because after that, I started buying all my friends' books and really taking it seriously.
That's funny. I took organic chemistry too, so I probably sold an organic chemistry textbook at some point.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that.
That stuff's crazy. I can't, like, dude, I think back, I'm like, could I pass that now? Like, I don't know. Like,
dude, okay, what's your opinion on school being demonized among entrepreneurs?
I changed my perspective on this a lot. I think like demonizing anything is like probably more drama than is necessary. You know, but I think for the most part, man, I'm like really changing my views on this, like to the point where I don't even have like a answer like ready anymore. I feel like I used to just be like, bam, with this answer, but
I bet selling your course changed your perspective on education.
That's true. That is really true. For sure. Like, yeah, it makes me think now, like, wow, like I don't want to get too on the demonizing side, but like it is a scam on a lot of levels. Like it can really be not valuable for people is the way I'll put it. Like it can for sure not be a good ROI in some cases. And in some cases I'm like, you know, look, if you want to be an engineer, like I'm all for that, like scientists, like organic chemistry, you know, stuff like that. And that's like what you want to do. You know, if you want to be a surgeon, like, yeah, you're going to have to go to school, not buy a course online, probably. I mean, we'll see how things go, but yeah, you know, I think like going to school when you don't know exactly what you want out of it, I lean towards like, that's a huge waste. What about you?
I think what I was thinking more of, I think it's the same thing. Like if you get a skill that can make you more money than going to school cost you, it's a good ROI. But I'm thinking more just in terms of high school, I guess, because people demonize even like just like the high school classroom. And I think I learned a lot of valuable skills in school that helped me today. Like when I sit down and I go through and I want to hear about your morning routine and like how you schedule your day out. But when I sit down, it takes a lot of focus. Like today I wasn't the most focused because I know I was interviewing you at 4:00. Before the interview turned on, I spilled my tea over here. I was preparing for it and mentally I just wasn't there. So I didn't have the most productive day. But I know to study for those organic chemistry tests, to study for all the gen ed classes, to study for the more advanced classes, I had to sit down in the library and get shit done. And I look back at what I did when I was in school and I'm like, I was being so unproductive. Like if I know the skills I know now, I would go back to school and crush it. Like I would instantly be like, that's not important. I can do like, I would be able to really get way more ROI in my time. But I do think the skill of sitting down for a couple hours and really grinding away at something, it reminds me of school when I work every day. Like it reminds me of studying, like, especially when I'm learning new skills, like I don't see it that much different. So even when Gary Vee is shitting on school, he doesn't shit on school too bad, but like a lot of his followers will shit on school. I don't really think it's a great argument because I think those skills are what also build your business.
Yeah, I think like,
doing the homework, you know, not the skills you learn from the homework.
Right. I think like what you're getting at and what's like maybe not always coming through in the Gary Vee message is that we need education, but it's just is like the current school setup like the right way of accomplishing that. I think there are elements of it, yes, but like all the skills that you just said you learned from school, like everyone should learn those for sure. But like, does it look very different in the future? Maybe it does. And I also think like I was thinking more about college specifically because it's like more optional, you know,
and the investment
exactly. But yeah, I mean, but even then it's like, do I regret going to like, I don't have like the dropout story. Like I graduated, and people are like, oh, like, do you regret it? And I'm like, no, because I don't really know how it would have like changed my path, I guess. Right. Like maybe I needed that to figure out to go the other way. But yeah, no, I would agree with you entirely. And like, dude, in so many ways, I was more focused then than now, which is weird too. Cause I used to just do so much studying and I was a good student, not like naturally, but just because I like forced myself to. And by being an entrepreneur and controlling everything, it's very difficult to get things done because it's just endless freedom.
You
right?
come off as a kid that like in organic chemistry, like you're the kid I would want to study with.
Probably, yeah. I was definitely like the one trying to like stay on top of everything. Yeah, like, but looking back, like that was such a stress. Like it was crazy. Like it's so wild to think like how much stress I put myself through for like organic chemistry. Like it just seems
organic.
so
I don't know if
now.
it was the same experience for you with organic chemistry, but organic chemistry for me was one of those classes that nobody could do it alone. Like everyone in our class, the way our teacher taught it, like you couldn't do it alone. You had to be in a group, and like because you sitting by yourself, you struggle on a stupid problem for like an hour. Whereas if you're in a group, someone would be like, "No, you fucking idiot, it's this way," and then boom, that whole hour is saved because you're with the group, and it's literally just like step by step by step trying to figure these things out, and then regurgitate that during test time.
Yeah, no, I remember. So I took organic chemistry at a community college. I ended up going to UCLA after that. But at the community college, that was exactly the environment. Like everyone's just like, let's just all help each other. Like we just got to figure this out. This is horrible.
Yeah.
Like it's like war, you know, you're just like,
it is.
Figuring it out. But then, and like, I don't know, like how your experience with college or different schools was, but like when I was at UCLA and that was for like the last 2 years. So I wasn't taking organic chemistry and stuff, but then the environment was so different. It was like everyone's out for themselves. Like you can't ask anybody anything because it's all competitive. So I can't imagine doing organic chemistry like in that environment. Like, it would have been crazy.
Yeah. Sounds terrible. Speaking of school and schools ripping people off, I'm selling a course now. When do marketing tactics become unethical? So we're going to have to break down the fourth wall for our audience here because a lot of people don't know the marketing tactics for courses. But really, when you're selling a course, it comes down to selling the dream or selling the solution to a problem. But for people that don't really have the problem yet, you're selling the dream. You're really selling the dream to everyone. Everybody wants freedom. Everyone wants more money. And so when it comes to marketing the product, oftentimes it's good just to talk about the dream rather than the product. This is proven. Like this is Russell Brunson. This is, the whole webinar thing. At what point in the marketing process does it become unethical? Because there's webinars where the whole time the webinar just talks about the dream. And it kind of shows you the path, but it doesn't highlight any of the actual things to do along the path, like the hard things you can implement. And there's also like these false deadlines and things. What's your opinion on all this?
Yeah, it's something I think about deeply is just ethics in business in general. Both, I've actually made videos on this exact topic. I've made videos on this even on the Amazon context, like the ethics of private label and FBA. I think there's interesting stuff there too. I think of it to the level where it definitely makes me less money than I could be making by probably an exponential factor because I don't want to do anything that feels unethical. So I think that the course space is just ripe for unethical people. So I think the biggest problems are over-promising. Like, you could talk about a dream if you're realistic about, the levels of like the downsides, right? But like if you're selling the dream as like the only possible outcome, definitely a problem. If you're not talking about the downsides whatsoever, if you're not talking about the risks, if you're not talking about how you could lose money on different things or whether it's money or whatever sort of, how to get abs or whatever. Like if you're not saying like, yeah, like maybe you just won't like, if you're just like guaranteed abs in 20 minutes, like obviously it's just over marketing. So
have you gotten hit with the handstand ad on Instagram?
Don't
30,
think so.
30 days to a handstand. I'm like, how are you going to market this to people who are like above 200 pounds?
Right. Yeah. It's like, what's like the refund policy? Yeah. So I think that like I have no problem with like persuasive copy and with, trying to hit like certain psychological points. I think that stuff is fine. And it always comes back to intent, right? So if you're doing this because you think that you have something that is helpful for people and you are positioning it in a realistic way, then I don't think marketing is unethical. But I think that if you are just trying to appeal to, the person that needs to see the Lambos, the person that needs to just feel that hype without like, no, like this is a business, guys. Like, let's just like talk about this. You're starting a business. Like, it takes money. You might make money. You might lose money. Like, but if instead the conversation is just like Lambos and girls and yachts and like champagne, like then it's like, it's not realistic. It's not even talking about business at all. It's just the dream. So yeah. I think it's a huge problem. I think another problem that doesn't get talked about in the make money online space, probably the favorite point that I put into my video about it was preying on young kids. I think that is a massive problem in this space. Like, I don't know, like maybe there should be a law that like you can't sell a business course to somebody like under the age of like 18. I don't know like if that's even possible, but yeah, I think that a lot of that crappy marketing is trying to appeal to like literally like 13 to 16-year-old kids.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they have a lot of success with that. I mean, they must if they keep marketing towards them, right? You're good.
Sorry for the cough. I keep all the talking. It's not don't worry. I just realized like, oh yeah, there's a pandemic right now. Wow, lost my train of thought a bit. Oh yeah, does it work to sell to young kids? I think it must. Yeah. I mean, if you just look at like the drop shipping crowds, no, not to throw shade on drop shipping. I'm sure there are people that do it legitimately, but it seems like certain business models really attract like the young kids, the hype kids, the get rich quick sort of scene.
I think drop shipping is an interesting one because I actually know a super smart drop shipper, Paul. He was on my channel recently. He's doing it the right way. He used to be a lawyer, like super smart guy. Now he does drop shipping. And but I did go to a drop shipping event here in Miami, and everybody, like, nothing against, I know you really like cars, which surprises me. Like, your personality, I wouldn't think you to be the type of person that like is really into cars. I think that's cool about you. I like paradoxes in people. But at this event, there was like, everybody was flash. I don't even know cars that well. So like the only one I know is like a Lamborghini. So I'm just gonna say everybody was driving Lamborghinis, but it was like the nicest cars. And everybody was dressing super nice, which I have nothing against that either. Like, I have nothing against any of these things, but it was interesting from going from like a reselling conference and even like watching, because I'm more connected with the Privet Label guys on YouTube. I watch their content just to seeing like everybody was so flashy. And I was like, wow, like this community is like this. And even like their sales numbers are super inflated. So it's kind of ironic, almost like how it's like everything's congruent. Like their sales numbers are super inflated because they're drop shipping. So they're going to have like $1 million in sales, but at like $10,000 they're pocketing. But I don't know. I guess different communities attract a different type of person.
Yeah. I think a lot of people want to, I like to phrase it as playing business. Like they want to play business. They don't want to like do business. They just want to play business. Like they want to act like they're super busy and they want to have like the cars and like maybe we're wearing a suit or whatever. And like, they just want to play business. Like it's not
play business. I want to do whatever they're doing. As long as I can get the cars and survive.
Yeah. No, I think that, but yeah, that space is like, I don't know, like when crypto was really popping, like that attracted a lot of weird people into it. And there's, again, like, I don't mean to at all like talk badly on dropshipping or crypto. Like I think crypto is really interesting. I think some people absolutely crush it with dropshipping. Like the guy you just mentioned, I think that's great. But like when you have a 14-year-old kid selling his course on dropshipping and he has like a Ferrari or a Lambo that he can't even legally drive or whatever. Like it just, there's obviously those are the things that are like part of the unethical parts.
Yeah.
And maybe they help some people. And I don't know, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I think about it too much. Like maybe those 14-year-old kids, it's like a good life lesson for them to like try something out. And even if they lose their $1,000 or whatever, like maybe in the long term that is good. I don't know. I
think it's just like such a young space. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. I think people are able to sell these courses for tons of money now. And I don't think we're going to see that in the future, like maybe 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road. Because think about it. Think about a book. How much information is in that book? And think about writing a book and selling the book for $10 or whatever it goes for in the bookstore, maybe 10, maybe 20, max 30. If it's a textbook, you might be able to get more. But even textbooks is an example of that. But like some of the best books are so cheap I think it's just I think it's because there's not that much competition in the course selling space right now. So there's not that much barrier to entry. So anybody can enter it. And as long as you have some type of testimonial or credibility, people, I don't know if it's true that people can't get the information anywhere else. Gary Vee, like, he really shits on people with courses a lot of times. But it's, I don't know. It's like it's different than a book because it's like it's a video of people, or a video of a person like instructing you. But even school, I mean, school is expensive too. So I guess I'm talking in circles here, but you get what I'm saying. It's such a young space that so many people are entering it. Some people aren't legit, some people are, but the ones that are going to win right now are the ones that market it correctly. As time goes on, the best is going to win.
The short term, I think the ones that market it incorrectly are the ones making millions. Like, I'm not making millions. Just for anyone that isn't.
Well, I meant marketing correctly in the sense like you get people in the course, like you get people to buy it. Like, you're doing your job marketing to get them to click that button.
But that's what I'm saying is I think that the shady tactics work, and I think that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem is, like, me over here trying to do things like a little bit more straightforward. Like, I've sold like 0.1% of the Amazon courses compared to somebody else probably. Right. And I think it's interesting what you mentioned about like school, because the textbook is $100 or whatever. The textbook has all the information, yet the course, the college course or whatever, costs thousands of dollars. Right. So I could see, I don't think courses will get cheaper. I think that we're actually going to see a shift into higher end, like programs, like full inclusive things. Like, I think like the $1,000 course might not be a thing in 5 years, but I think the $3,000 course plus everything, like a real, almost like sometimes I'm weird about like semantics. You can probably tell like how I don't really like the term private label. I don't really like the term, like, I don't like all these terms. And like, even the term course, I feel like is not quite the right word, because like there could be a level of course that is like really like a course, like where you're
gonna be like a hologram course where Matt just comes out and comes to your living room and picks a product for you.
like imagine like I don't know, I got like I like went through some webinar for like a YouTube ads thing, and they weren't selling a course, they were selling like, it was like, I don't know, it was like $12,000 or something, and it was like there would be a course element to it, but you would also get like these sessions with experts on different topics to literally help you work through this stuff. And it was like over 12 weeks. And
it's like a catalyst for everything you need to actually succeed in business.
Yeah. Like, imagine like a $5,000 Amazon course that like, say, included my $1,000 course, but it also included like, like a session with a designer, a session with, all the different, like a product sourcing expert. Like, you would have this whole team of people like assisting you through every step of the process. There would be like, weekly meetings, and you would get like X number of hours with this person and this person. Like, I think the courses, that's what I mean when I say courses might get more high end. Like, they might, because something like that would have to be more expensive, obviously. Like, say if hypothetically, I'm not really looking to offer something like that, but if I was, I would have to like have other experts who are getting paid out from this and things like that. Like, like the like the branding expert who might help you, like work with you to come up with your name, your logo and everything. Like, that person's going to need to get like $1,000 or whatever the cut. So I could see, I think that's kind of starting to shift. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I really like that idea. All right, let's go back to Privet Label real quick, because I know people are watching this video to learn about Privet Label.
Sure.
What are the 3 biggest mistakes people make when selling on Amazon, selling Privet Label?
Okay. Well, the biggest and most obvious mistake is just running too fast into the wrong product. Like, you really have to learn about how to evaluate the numbers of an Amazon product. Like, that's number one is, do you know what you're getting into? Can you evaluate this market? Can you evaluate the sales numbers, the level of competition, all of that? Because this is basically like number 1, 2, and 3 mistake for the most part. Is just like people running into the wrong product. There's like sub mistakes within that, but definitely the first one is just like not evaluating what's actually going on in the market correctly. Like, maybe they see like, oh, this one seller is doing 10,000 a month, but they don't realize that there's 40 sellers below them that are doing 500 a month, right? So that's not good. Or they just find a market that's just overall really small, not big enough at all. So it's kind of about like establishing, is the market size actually there? Like, is there actually market volume? But then learning how to play that against the level of competition, because there's always going to be a level of competition. It's just about finding like the right balance between the market size and how much competition there. A lot of people mess that up. A second one would be, not having, honestly, like I think all three of mine will have to do with like the initial setup, like the stuff about shipping and labels, like you'll figure that out, right? That's the way I see it. Like you'll figure that stuff out, but these are kind of like in the initial setup. So not coming up with an actual offer that is compelling to the customer. Like we hear the word differentiation all the time. That just means like having your product be slightly different than another. That's majorly important for sure. But what I think people miss is realizing that they need to just craft a compelling offer all around. Like if you can't come up with a reason that if you saw your own product out of the 10 other competitors, if you can't come up with a pretty solid reason why you would choose your own, then that's what you are making a mistake with.
This is like just solid advice for like any business. Like I'm just thinking about this, like for selling my course, for working more with my reselling business. This is like just good advice for everything.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely applies broader, but yeah, putting yourself in the customer's shoes is always good advice. Something I've tried to use on any of them. It even ties back to like the marketing thing. Just to circle back on that real quick is we didn't even touch on this. Like customers smell it. Like they know, like if you're being weird, like they'll know. So yeah, just being honest and all of that, and making your offer actually something that you would sign up for. Like I remember, I believe it was George Bryant that spoke about this. He was saying he has this like thing called like the grandma test. It's like if you have a funnel and like you wouldn't be comfortable like sending your grandma down this funnel, like you're doing something shady.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah, like if you
it's good for two reasons. It's good for ethics. Who's gonna screw their grandma over? But it's also, can your grandma understand like a 21st century business?
It's like, oh, like the checkbox is automatically ticked that says I'm subscribing to like an additional $100 a month product or whatever. It's like like your grandma isn't gonna realize that was already clicked and that she needs to like click the X and then go over here and like. Yeah, that's the shady stuff. So, but I think it also applies on just, would you buy your own product? Like, does your product actually stand out enough, and is it unique enough? It doesn't have to be massively unique, because the more your product becomes unique, the more difficult that is on like the actual sourcing and engineering side. You can't just, depending on budget, you can't necessarily do every modification that you might want. But it's a matter of having the right amount of the right differentiation, the right marketing, the right like title, logo, price points, like everything, so that this package that you're creating is the clear choice amongst the competitors. So it comes down to like all these different things and creating this cohesive product where it's like, yeah, that's the no-brainer. That's the one that I want. So that's kind of the second one. And a third big mistake when starting selling on Amazon. Let's see. So making sure it's a good one. There's a lot, but one is that every product and well, actually, I'll give a sub one real quick. It's like when you're doing all the previous ones I talked about, you also need to be thinking about what's the second, third, and fourth product that would go around it, because that's a huge mistake as well. But that one's, if people watch my channel, they know I rant on that like so much that I won't give it a full one of the 3 points. But a third one is like every product and market has its own unique risks that are not immediately obvious. And I feel like this is something that almost can't be taught even by a course. Like, honestly, like this is something that is not going to be in my course about every single product in existence, because it just doesn't like, the world just doesn't work that way. So for example, if you were going to be selling knives, you have to be thinking like, okay, this is sharp, this is dangerous, liability. Like there's that kind of set of risks that might not be apparently obvious. Or if you're selling, like, I don't know, if you're selling like a bookshelf, you have to be concerned with like, could this tip over and stuff like that. Like there's these liability things. Then there's also like, oh, well, could this product be breakable in a way that is not immediately obvious? Could it snap? Could it, crack? How long is it going to last? Like kind of thinking through all the non-obvious risks of a market, because I literally think like every product has its own ones, and it's really easy to, and I think the only like answer there is to just kind of like sit on it and think about it. Like I don't really have like a specific strategy other than to just think through like, what is everything that is not immediately obvious about this product I'm considering? And that has to be factored into whether or not you go with it.
Yeah. I'm sure you thought a lot about private label products when the pandemic hit.
To be completely honest, I didn't, because I'm not a huge fan of like shorter term. I'm more of looking at long-term emerging trends than things that are very quick, because I think that's what everybody is thinking about. I'm trying to think about things that are emerging over the next 5 years, maybe, or things that have been gaining popularity for the last couple of years. But I'm actually not that zoomed in on trends, because I think that it's too obvious. Like those are the things that get blown out extremely, extremely quickly. But yeah,
that's a good way to think about it. Cause I was like, damn, I should have gotten the toilet paper market. What was I thinking?
Yeah. Like, well, no, the best place to be would to have been, a bidet company a year ago and been ready for this. But, you can't really plan that.
I actually followed a bidet company on Instagram, and then I DM'd them a while back, and I was like, I've always wanted to start like this type of business. Cause I always have, like, I always thought it would, I think that business is going to do really well down the road. It's already doing really well, I think, in European countries, but pretty soon everybody's going to think toilet paper is gross, and everybody's going to be using a bidet. But like they just saw a spike in sales whenever coronavirus got really bad. So I messaged them again. I was like, "How's business?" And they're like, "It's fantastic. We're out."
Yeah. See, that is a trend in like, whether Corona or not, like the trend has already started, right? Like you can just sense it with these things. So
I think the coronavirus, for some things, like certain trends, the coronavirus is like helping accelerate, like not the coronavirus, but this whole quarantine thing, people being at home, people are starting to see the practicality of different products.
Yeah. Look at like Zoom, for example. Like Zoom has been a thing. But now like everybody in the world knows what it is. Yeah.
Uber Eats, bidet companies, and it's even going to change our culture. Like I'm thinking about like, what are barbers doing right now?
Dude, I bought clippers and everything. Like I guess I don't need a barber anymore.
Think about like what would you do if you got hit with a Facebook ad? It's like, yo, I'm a barber. I'm in California. I'll come to your house. Like I get tested every time before I go to a new client. Like that'd be legit, wouldn't it? How much would you pay for that haircut? And he gives a good haircut too.
I mean, like, I guess like $50 if they come to you, probably, right?
Just $50. He's got to like get tested for Corona.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, wait, is he getting tested like between every?
Yeah, because he can't go from one house to the next.
I don't know, but yeah, no, I guess you're right. I guess it would have to be like $100+, but I don't know if I would pay for it, especially since I cut my own hair and I was like, oh, this shit's not that hard.
Sometimes I try and justify like things like cutting your hair. I'm like, oh, I have my own personal brand. I gotta cut my hair and make it look perfect, but like, who knows how much it actually matters?
Yeah, I think about that too for sure.
I asked my CPA, I was like, can I write this off? And he's like, why would you be able to write a haircut off? I was like, I'm shooting some YouTube videos next week.
Yeah, it's like, well, I need to write my clothes off. I mean, I wear clothes in my YouTube videos.
Yeah. Lane Castleberry is giving a $2 super chat. This is my first super chat ever when Matt comes on the show, so I'll split that 50-50 with you.
Oh, man, yeah, I'll give you my PayPal after
this. Eat Sleep Amazon, she's saying, what's up, guys? What up, Eat Sleep? Fat Elvis Good says, boom. Got a question from Winnie Bennett. Says, when do you license products to brands?
No, I don't do any of that. It's just, I mean, I'm sure that there's a model there, like coming up with unique products, you mean, and then like licensing your technology out to other brands. It's just not a path that I've done, but I'm sure it is. It's just not really standard in this model, though. It's more like, finding a manufacturer, making my own brands, and then only selling my own brands. So that's the extent of my experience with it.
Gotcha. If you guys got questions, go ahead and throw them in there. We got a couple more here. Is he ever worried about Amazon copying his private label products?
I actually just filmed a video about that because there's this article going around right now about apparently Amazon, like there was like leaked data that Amazon employees were using seller data to influence like their own private label products. And this has always been a concern, but I'll give like a quick summary of what I said in it, because it's a long rambling topic kind of, but it's not that big of a concern because I think, one, they're mainly going after like really big products and they're going after one product. So if you have your entire business does $1 million a year on one product, then I think that's not a safe place to be anyways. And I think that, it's pretty ripe for Amazon to do that. But, I'm always promoting people to go from one product to the next, to the next, to the next. Like you have to be diversifying. You have to be doing that no matter what. And I also think, Amazon isn't, for the most part, even at like my level or like anybody in our realms level, like we're playing with pretty small products, like it's not big to Amazon, and they do get into smaller products, but for the most part, they usually don't dominate. Like if Amazon starts selling like, I don't know, like it's hard to think of an example on the spot, like planters. Like if Amazon sells, I know they have a brand where they sell like home goods and stuff. It's not even Amazon Basics. It's like their own brands. But if you look up like planters, they're kind of just thrown into the mix of competition like everybody else. Like it's not like it shut down the entire niche. So it's not something that keeps me up at night. But at the same time, that's not because I don't think it happens. I think it's a valid concern. I just think that there's actually like bigger concerns to be had when it comes to private label.
Yeah. Probably bigger concerns for Amazon too.
Oh yeah. So also that was a interesting aspect of the article and the video is that Amazon says, they have policies in place that this is not allowed for their employees. And my initial reaction of that was like, yeah, like of course, but obviously they're going to do it. Right. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, no, actually, I think Amazon actually doesn't want its employees to do this. And I think the reason for that is because they know what the backlash would be. It's like monopolistic, crazy stuff. So I think it's more that the Amazon private label executives are incentivized to have success with their private label brands. So they're like, how do we get ahead? And then they cut some corners and access data they're not supposed to access, if
I don't get that. Is it just because like they're dominating the market that would be unethical to access the data? Because it seems like they should be able to access the data if it's theirs. You know what I mean?
I think it just becomes monopolistic.
Gotcha.
What I thought was interesting, this came up like a couple of years back. I don't even know if this is still the case. Maybe it probably is still the case, but I should look into this. But I know that in India, for Amazon India, they have just a law in India that it outlaws you as a company from being both a retailer and a manufacturer, I believe is the phrasing. Meaning you can't be both. Like either you're a platform and you let things be sold on it, or you are a manufacturer who sells things. But like you can't be both, because then you're like controlling both sides. But then at the same time, I mean, does Target do this? Target, like, do you think when Target is coming out with like their own brand of soap, do we think that they're not looking at the sales for the brands of soap in the store? It is kind of like obvious. But I agree. I see it both ways. Like part of me is like, wait, is it like, should they actually not be allowed to do it? I don't know. But what I do know is that would be obvious backlash from it. And there would be like crazy media headlines the way there are right now. So I think it's actually in their best interest to, not really do that, because they can probably get the data in some other ways. Like I believe it said, and this part was hard to understand, but I believe it said that Amazon is allowed to look at aggregate data. They're allowed to look at overall data, but they're not allowed to look at like this seller's data or this brand's data, because then that would be like a little bit too much information that you wouldn't be able to get. But for example, they might be able to look at soap as a category or as a subcategory, but they can't look at, this brand, this seller, let's go into their account, see how much money they had to spend on ads. Let's figure out, how much money they, because they obviously have access to much more than we do, even with tools like Jungle Scout, Helium 10, all of that. They can see everything. I mean, they can see where the inbound shipment is coming from if they want.
Have you heard of Hotjar? This is kind of like a side note. Back to courses.
No, I don't think so.
It's a software or a service that screen records people's screen when they visit your page. So if they visit your landing page on ClickFunnels or whatever you use to sell your course, you can see how far down did they scroll? Did they barely scroll down? That's pretty crazy. I just found out about that today.
So I'm actually using that, not that one, but I'm using something like that on one of my Shopify stores right now. So I have like and it kind of relates to what you said about the being into cars. So I'm really into Porsches, and I have one that I then made a company around. So I have like a Porsche parts business that I talk openly about, by the way. Like, you can look at the product website.
Do you have an Instagram page for that, or is that something different? You have a car page.
I have a couple car pages, but I do for this one. It's rsnv.co. That's the website as well on Instagram and the website. Okay. People can literally like look at the product I'm selling. But where was I going with that? Yeah. So on Shopify, there's an app called Lucky Orange, and you can literally like watch what your customers are doing. And it is a little creepy, but the way that I don't think of that as like unethical, because I'm just doing something like that to make sure like the website is functioning in a way that is clear. Like, I'm not using that data to then like do anything unique to that customer. I'm just making sure I'm seeing how customers as a whole are interacting.
I feel like that's generally how it is with privacy invasion, though. It's usually like, I'm just doing this because like the government could say, I'm just using your location to know how many people are abiding by quarantine. And then a year later, they're like, actually, we've been watching you the whole time. We found out, X, Y, Z about you.
I guess the thing there is just, I trust myself more than the government.
Yeah, 100%. I trust you more than the government too.
Yeah, you can send me your location. I'll keep it safe.
What is that squeal feedback? Train stopping? Do you hear a squeal? Has there been a squeal this whole time?
It might have been a truck going by. If it's happening right now,
I think I did hear one earlier on your end. I was just hoping nothing on my end was freaking out. Well, Matt, I appreciate you coming on, man. Do you, where can they find you at?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Matt Loberstein everywhere. As you said, I do random stuff on Instagram and TikTok a little bit, or you can see like the more this type of content on YouTube, Matt Loberstein. Yeah. I do a weekly email at mattloberstein.com. People can check out if they're kind of interested in. I've been doing this one segment in my weekly email that's really fun, where I give away a business idea. So I'm practicing like building the idea muscle of just like coming up with potential businesses. And every week I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to take one off my own list. I'm just going to like put it out there for people to like steal, poke apart, whatever. But people have been really liking that. And then also just other things in there.
Oh, one more question. I wanted to ask you this before it's all over. When you wake up first of all, what's your week look like? Do you have work days? Do you have off days? Is it always the same?
Yeah, everything's weird right now, but typically, I change it so much, but right now I would say everything is pretty mixed up, based on my wife working a weekend job for the last few months. So that's kind of like changed our weekends to not be weekends. But for a while I was like shifting back towards, let my weekends be weekends. But then lately that hasn't been the case. So every day is roughly the same. I would say I do work less on weekends typically, or almost none. For a while it was 100% none. My days are fairly unstructured. This is an area that I still suck at, which is why I try to, give it so much attention and try to like have all these weird practices and hobby and, routines and, wake up and journal and meditate and all that stuff because I am so scattered. But, I typically work on and off from something like 9 or 10 a.m. until like 4. Usually by then I'm just like kind of checked out and like thinking about making dinner and just hanging out and stuff like that. But
and do you work in burst, or do you work like 2 or 3 hours at once and then take some time off?
Yeah. Sometimes I would say to work a 2 or 3 hour burst is honestly like super long for me. Like most of the time it's like less. It's like, how long does it take to like knock out this? And then I'll usually like pop outside or, try to relax in between. But yeah. So for the most part, yeah, it's like short bursts, I would say, with like.
Are you like religious about having no phone during that time? Do you take your phone and throw it in the closet?
Not super religious though. That is a great practice. That's just something I haven't abided by lately. But when it's a little weird to like get into this stuff with the current situation, because I feel like I've definitely not been on my routine, but I feel like if I'm on point, I think that's a great thing to recommend. It's just like being fully honest.
Almost like a hypocrite. Like,
yeah, I feel like I would just sound like a hypocrite right now to be like, yeah, like first I meditate and I put my phone in a box, and
you're
then
gonna get exposed by Hotjar. Like, yeah. Actually, Matt Loberstein was on his phone all day.
Yeah, like lately it's just been weird. Like typically I wouldn't look at my phone though until like say 10 or 11 a.m. But lately I've just been kind of like, I don't know, like the whole world's just weird. Like, let me just see what's on TikTok or whatever.
So you start work at 9. What time do you get up?
I get up like 7 on average.
Okay. And then what time are you going to sleep?
Like 9 to 10.
Okay.
9 to 11. I mean,
I know you're big on sleep. I know.
I am, yeah. 8 or 9 hours a night for sure.
And you track your sleep with that ring. What's that ring called?
Yeah, it's a Oura ring. Oura. It's think of it as basically like a Fitbit sort of thing, but focused on sleep, and you just wear it as a ring. But yeah, I love it. I think sleep is like one of the most important factors of all health, maybe number one. Like, I'm big into like, weird diet and stuff like that as well. All these like weird health hacks fascinate me, but I think sleep is like the number one.
So when it comes to good sleep, do you wake up and you're like, I feel rested, and you look at the ring and it says your sleep was super shitty? Does that ever happen? Or vice versa? You're like, man, I slept so bad last night. And then it's like, you slept perfectly.
It does. That's funny you mentioned that, because that was probably the most surprising thing about getting it, was how people were really bad at knowing what really happened. Like, especially the people that are like, the people listening to this that are like, oh yeah, like I sleep like 3 hours a night. I have like the worst sleep ever. It's like, I don't think you're right. I don't think you know what's happening when you're in your like delusional state of like drifting in and out, and like most likely that's not true. But yeah, what you said absolutely happens. Is there are nights where I wake up feeling kind of crappy and I'm like, oh, actually I got a great night's sleep. I feel better now. And then on the other hand, sometimes I'm like, oh, I slept amazing, but it's like, no, actually I didn't get a lot of deep sleep last night. I'm like, oh, that's weird. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Do you notice a correlation between like cutting caffeine off at a certain time, drinking water throughout the day, not having artificial light at nighttime? And out of those are like the three main things. Out of those things, what really affects your sleep the most that you can draw correlations to? Yeah,
so those are all fantastic, and I recommend all those. But the ones that I would say, the two that I changed the most drastically since actually seeing the data, because I was already doing a lot of those before, but the two that really impacted me was one, actually going to sleep earlier, because sleeping from 12 to 8 is not the same as sleeping from 9 to 5, 9 to 6, or whatever. Like, it's just not. Your body has all these different rhythms at different times. Like, it's crazy, but you could look it up. Somebody could explain it better than I can, but it's definitely not the same. So I've always struggled my whole life with like staying up later and later and later and later and later, and wanting to go to sleep earlier and earlier, but just not doing it. But now over the past year and a half, like, I mean, there are some nights where we're in bed before 9, which sounds insane to me. Still, like, even though I'm doing it, but I used to stay up in the summers to like 2 a.m. and all that shit. Like, now that seems like insane. So that's a huge one. And then also is making sure to not eat close to bedtime.
That's interesting. Craig Ballantyne recommends that.
That one is measurable. Like, if you have, if you eat like even like an hour before bed, like, you will see like your heart rate doesn't drop until 3 hours after you go to sleep.
I saw that he recommended that in his book, and I did some research on it, but I couldn't find anything super compelling. And I was like, you know what? Out of everything, I'm gonna let that one go, because I'm already kind of skinny. I'm trying to gain weight, and I was like, I'm just gonna start eating when I want to again. But I did it for a whole week. I did Craig Ballantyne's routine, and I was like, he stops eating like 2 or 3 hours before he goes to sleep, and I was like, that seems a bit excessive. But that's interesting. That was one of the biggest things that you saw made a difference.
Yeah, I try not to eat within, I would say, like 3 hours or more before going to sleep. That one has a huge impact. And there's definitely times I'll like cheat that a little, have like something really small, but like not right before bed. I used to like thinking about the way I used to like, go out to like a super late dinner or something sounds like actually unappealing now that I know like how now that I realize how much that affects me.
It just keeps your heart rate going, and it's like too much is going on digesting the food that your body can't focus on I guess healing effects of sleep. Like it's just too focused on what's going on inside your body.
It seems like it's preoccupied. Like it's just you're probably not even getting the level of restoration in your sleep is probably like 25% instead of 80% or something, because your body is so busy with this like massive meal you just had, and you can see it in your heart rate. I mean, another obvious one is alcohol. It has the same effect. Like even if you have like one drink. So I basically don't drink, but when I occasionally have even like one, you can see it. You'll see your heart rate stays up for the first half of the night or something like that, just from one drink.
Yeah, on nights when I drank a lot, like I'm actually doing like a 6-month drinking fast because me and my buddy, we moved down to Miami together. We're like not drinking for 6 months, so like we're on like month 3 or 4 now. I feel great, but on nights when I drank a lot, I just remember, especially when I did not drink water, I would wake up and what it's like to be hungover, but it's just like I just felt like my blood pressure was raised all night long. It was just like throbbing, and I wake up and had dry mouth. I just felt like that sleep did nothing for me. Like I just laid in bed and I still feel like shit.
I know the feeling, but I think what's really interesting about it is that if you have like 1 or 2 or even a few drinks overnight, you probably wouldn't get that feeling, right? Like that wouldn't be enough. But what's more subtle is realizing that like that is still happening just at like a lower level that you're not even it's not obvious, but it's like,
I would notice if I was like dehydrated and I had a drink really late at night, like 11, like had a beer or 2 with my friend and went to sleep. Some mornings I'd wake up and I was like, whoa, am I hungover? Yeah. Does hydration have much to do with it? Have you noticed like days you don't drink water and go to sleep, your sleep is kind of screwed up, or do you not have it dialed down that much?
I definitely think, I mean, if you drink too much water before bed and you have to wake up in the middle of the night, then that's
being dehydrated and having like similar effects to alcohol, just because your blood's more thick.
Probably. I guess I never think I'm that dehydrated.
You probably shouldn't do that. You probably
I would never. I can't remember going to sleep dehydrated in like other contexts really, but I'm sure it would have a pretty negative effect. But yeah, I mean, anything that disturbs your sleep during the night is measurable on it. You don't just fall right back. You get back to like the sleeping at different times. The way you can see that measurably is that you'll get your REM sleep, like the dream sleep, your more like cognitive restoration sleep, whereas with deep sleep is a little more like physical. You literally see that at different chunks during the night. So you never realize this until you measure it, but like you get all your deep mostly like front loaded in the night, and most of your REM like towards the waking up hours. So if you cut your sleep short, like you're not just cutting your sleep short, you're actually like cutting your REM like in half, for example, because maybe you would have got straight REM from like 7 hours to 9 hours. And instead you cut it off at 7 when you had only had like an hour of REM or something. So yeah, it's really interesting to realize like how, because we always hear about like phases of sleep, right? But to actually see it and be like, oh wait, no, like this morning sleep is completely different than my midnight sleep. Completely.
Yeah. I got to get one of those things, man.
Do it. It's pretty life-changing.
I've been doing great with except for this light in my face right now. It's almost 6 o'clock here. So I go to sleep at like 8:30, really 8:30, 9:30 every night, ever since the quarantine. I used to go out salsa dancing. So I would go out salsa dancing. I get home at like 11 or 12. And I knew it wasn't as good for me. I read it in a book, but I also just felt it. When I slept from 10 until 6, I felt way better than from like 12 to 9. Like that sleep. There's something, your body knows when the sun's up and when the sun's down. Like the circadian rhythm, it's a real thing.
Yeah. Doesn't the night feel longer when you do that?
When I do what?
When you sleep really early. Like do you ever wake up feeling like you've slept forever and it's like 1 a.m. or something?
Yeah. Oh, I've been waking up at like, I've been setting my alarm for 6:30, but I've been waking up at like 5:30 and I feel good to go. I'm like, shit, I want to sleep a little bit longer, but my body's like rested. Like I'm ready to go.
I would guess if you have the data that you're dropping into your deep sleep earlier because of going to sleep earlier, which is then making your REM kick in at like, 3 a.m. or something or 2 to 3 a.m. Probably switch over to REM.
Yeah, I'll have to get one of those rings and go back to my bad habits and then do it all over again.
Well, it also that's one of the best feedback loops of it is that when you get a bad score, you're like, dang, I need to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a good feedback loop.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Matt. You guys can follow him at Matt Loberstein on every social media. And maybe we'll do this again, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Much love.